Hello everyone, welcome to my official 2026 NHL mock draft. The draft is tonight. Super excited. It's only a few hours away. Point of this though is to document where I think everybody's gonna go. I know that this isn't really for like views and stuff like that, but again, I want to have it documented somewhere. And we're gonna run through where I think everybody's gonna go. I've got my rankings and stuff like that on my phone here, and I pretty much know what I'm gonna do here. But Gavin McKenna is gonna go number one. That seems pretty likely at this point. It's not as likely as like uh, Schaefer or Celebrini or even Bedard. So like, um, it's not a full guarantee, but like I mean, I'm pretty sure the Leafs did end up basically saying they're gonna take McKenna during the combine. So I do think that's where they go, and I don't mind that. I think it's very close between him and Stenberg for the number one player in the class. I think McKenna arguably has the higher upside, the ceiling, and I think the Leafs. I think he just fits what the Leafs need right now a little bit better anyway. They're trying to contend, and I think Stenberg is also going to be like a guy who's going to come into the NHL pretty soon and be like productive almost immediately. But regardless, I just think McKenna fits a little bit better to that style of hockey. And yeah. And then number two, San Jose Sharks are going to take Ivar Stenberg. Um, Earlier, I thought this would be Chase Reed, and I like Chase Reed going here, and that made a lot of sense. Some people thought it was Stenberg even before the trades that they made, but now as it sits, it's very likely they're going to take Stenberg because they've traded Will Eklund, who's been a solid left winger for them, and Ivar Stenberg is pretty much the replacement. On top of that, now you're drafting again here at ninth, so yeah, I think it's going to be Ivar Stenberg, and I think that's the right choice. Number three, the Vancouver Canucks. Pretty easy choice for me as well. It's going to be Caleb Malhotra. I do think he is like probably the third best player of the class or fourth between him and Chase Reed probably. But regardless, it has nothing to do with the family ties and all that, like his dad being the coach there now. I get that there's speculation from that and there's going to be talk about that because they are related and that is a big deal, but Caleb Malhotra, like I said, is deserved to be drafted here. He's a center. He has a really high upside. I feel like he's really fun to watch right now. I hope he can translate to the NHL level because I do really like Caleb Malhotra and his dad, of course, being a former NHLer. This would be a good story. Buffalo, I've gone pretty consensus with the first three picks. This is where I'm gonna switch it up a bit. I think most people have them taking Chase Reed, and I could see that. I think that is pretty likely to happen. But I'm actually gonna go with where is he? Oh, here, Vigo Bjork, who can play center. It says he can play right wing as well. I think that Vigo Bjork is like, for me, he's like the fifth best player in this class, and I think the only thing holding him back in people's mock drafts and rankings like that is his size, which I'm not really considering that. I think he's going to translate well to the NHL, and I think he'll end up having a really good career. I'm not worried by his size. If my team took Bjork, I'd be beyond excited. And again, Chase Reed like seems like the more likely pick, but I'm gonna go with some hot takes here, um, because stuff we don't expect will happen tonight, and it will likely happen pretty early. Same thing happened last year. We got some shockers like pretty early. So yeah, fourth overall is where the chaos kind of begins in this. Vigo Bjork. The New York Rangers, that leaves. I think the Rangers probably take a defenseman. I do think if Vigo Bjork fell to them, he is in consideration. But for me, this it would normally be Carroll's, but I think it's going to be Chase Reed just based off the fact that he fell to them, and I think you run to the podium and take the best player available. I know you have Adam Fox, but I mean on the left side you also have Gavrikov, so the Rangers just need some star power, and Chase Reed can absolutely be that and a future number one defenseman. I think now with the Flames on the board, there's a few things they can do. I think because Carson Carrolls is available, I usually have him going to New York at five, but in this scenario, Carson Carrolls is available. If this happens tonight, I think the Flames will take Carson Carrolls. And if I didn't mention already, this is a predictive mock draft, so this is not what I would do. This is just what I predict is going to happen. So yeah, the Seattle Kraken now, I think they need to draft a defenseman as most do. I think Keaton Verhoff still being here is a good thing for them, and I think that's a great addition. You're going to make seventh overall. Keaton Verhoff could be like he could easily be like, I could see him being a top pair two-way defenseman. We'll see how he turns out, but I think Keaton Verhoff's good to add to the pipeline. Seattle desperately needs like uh, some defensive talent when it comes to like these prospects and things like that. So I think that's where they'll go. The Winnipeg Jets. Um, I'm I do consider the fact that Tynan Lawrence is an American forward, I believe, and despite that, he's going into like a smaller Canadian market too. But the Winnipeg Jets do need center depth as of right now. That's one of the biggest issues on their team. As they try to continue to contend, I think Tynan Lawrence is a guy who can step in fairly soon compared to a lot of these prospects and be impactful again pretty soon. He's going to be like a middle sixer, maybe second or third line centerman. And I think while that's not the most like exciting thing to hear, like that is about something you'd get at eighth overall. If he can be a second line defenseman, I mean, excuse me, a second line centerman, that's going to be really valuable to the Winnipeg Jets, and I think they'd really benefit from having that. There's San Jose Sharks who took Ivar Stenberg at number 2. I think this is going to be a defenseman now, and a right shot defenseman is their biggest need as of right now, who can like really be that number 1. Daxon Rudolph for me is a little bit like I have my concerns about him, but at the end of the day, his ceiling is super high, or not like sky high, but I do think he can be that top pair and like potentially a power play QB, an offensive guy. Like right now, he needs a lot of work defensively, so that's why I have my concerns for him. And yeah, we'll see what they think, but I think since this is predictive, I think it's pretty easy for me to say they'll take either Daxon Rudolph or Keaton Verhoff, depending on who's there. The Nashville Predators picking at number 10. Um, there's a lot of areas this team needs to address, in my opinion. I think that based on current management, it's going to be different from like what they would normally make. They have Chris McFarland at GM now. To me, Ethan Belchetz has the size. He's going to be a fairly high floor player. And I think Nashville's going to want that. It seems like Chris McFarland's came in and made moves that he wants to win now with his team. He's already went out and got Drury and Ross Colton, trading young guys like Svechkov and LaRue. But to me, that just indicates that he's trying to contend a little sooner rather than later. I know Albert Smits is available as well. But to me, I just think Ethan Belchet's still being here for them. I can see Albert Smits kind of falling because I don't know what his true like upside is. But yeah, Ethan Belchet's to Nashville for me is my prediction. I would love it if they took Wyatt Cullen, which I know some guys are apparently lower on. I know Elite Prospects is also really low on him. Anyways, St. Louis at number 11. This is where we'll have Wyatt Cullen. I think St. Louis just needs to take best prospect available in every spot they draft. I do not think they'll end up drafting 4 times around 1. I think we'll see trades at some point, but I think Wyatt Cullen being there, like regardless of what their situation is with all their prospects and their current team, is just taking the best player available, and you really can't go wrong with that type of pick. In my opinion, he can be like a top 6 forward, really productive someday in the league. So the Devils, I don't know where he is ranked, but I think the Devils could use a little bit of center depth actually, and a guy who I think will rise on draft night is Alex Command. Um, I've seen rumors that he will rise, and it could happen. I mean, he's like a fairly safe center option, and we see that tend to go like higher than you'd expect on draft night. So Alex Command, Tynan Lawrence, guys like this, I think are just gonna go high just because they're centers, and a league where the center position matters so much as it does. Alex Command is a guy I really do like though, and I'm not just because I'm saying he's gonna rise and just because he's a center and has more value like that. I'm not discrediting him as a player. I do really like him as a player as well. New York Islanders picking 13th overall. At this point, I think they'll just take Albert Schmitz just because he's still available. I know they have Matthew Schaefer, like obviously, and then Keyshawn Aitchison, kind of a prospect developing there. But Albert Schmitz is going to be like, to me, probably a second or third pair defenseman, which makes sense because you'll have Schaefer and Aitchison, like I said. So if you get the 3 left side defensemen within the last year of the draft, I mean, it's looking really good. And again, I think you take Schmitz just because he fell here. So we'll see if that ends up happening. I think the Columbus Blue Jackets will end up going. Where is he? Malte Gustafsson, Swedish defenseman. He's a lefty, and I think this makes sense. I think Columbus could use a little bit of uh, help really on defense, like other than Werenski, and they're gonna want him to stay, obviously. But um, I know he's not like the most exciting guy, but I think like he is one of my top ranked defensemen in the class. Like I like him personally more than like a Daxon Rudolph. Um, it's just like I this is predictive for one, but and then two, I just like the upside. I don't know how great it is. To me, he's a really good defensive defenseman, and like teams need to value that. Like, and he put up solid offensive production this past year too. So I don't know. Malte Gustafsson might end up being like a sleeper that I think a lot of people are just kind of not realizing how valuable he really should be. St. Louis now with their second pick of the round. I think they're gonna go Ryan Lynn. I think Ryan Lynn he's a fairly skilled like two-way defender. He's a righty and a little bit on the smaller side, but he's a very physical defenseman, and I think the Blues would like love a guy like that. I think this is about the range I could see him going. I could see him slipping a little bit more just because of his size, but I think Ryan Lynn deserves to be around this range in the draft. And then to round out the lottery section of the draft, we've got one more St. Louis pick. I think this is going to be Ollie Savanto. And he's a center, and to me, his floor is a little bit higher. So once again, like these centers with higher floors, I just see this like I see year after year that type of player being drafted higher. So he might be like a bottom sixer if we're being honest. That's what his ceiling ends up being, but at the end of the day, he's going to be an NHLer in my opinion, and teams do take that. You can't just draft year after year busts. All right, I'm kind of just going to speed through the bottom 16 of the round here, just because I kind of don't know as much as the rest of the prospects. Elton Hermanson is a guy that has another high ceiling. I think the Kings need to kind of take some swings now because they're clearly going for it with the trade for Artemi Panarin. And now that you've lost, Kopitar and things like that, you're just going to need to take some swings and not have a bunch of middle sixers, in my opinion. I think Adam Novotny, another guy I like, he's a center and he's going to go to Washington. A bit of a swing there as well, but I think Novotny has some strong enough upside to where I do like him. And then for Utah, Oscar Hemming is a guy that I could see kind of fitting in there, the winger. And yeah, Buffalo with their second pick, I think they're going to go after defensemen since I had them taking, Vigo Bjork at 4. I think Tommy Boyle is just the best defenseman available, so that is what they'll do. I think a team like the Flyers, I could see them taking kind of a swing and going for the high upside of a Nikita Klepov at 21 overall. And then you look at a Pittsburgh, and I think they're going to go for a defenseman I'm decently high on, Juho Piparainen. The Boston Bruins, I'm going to have them taking Maddox, Dagenais. Here's the rest of the bottom 16 in my round 1 mock draft. I do think Liam Ruck ends up going to the Canucks. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors about that. And then I have Ilya Morozov, one of my favorite forwards in this draft class, from the Miami Redhawks, coming off of a great season in the NCAA. I think he's going to be a first rounder and worthy of that. He's got great size, and I hope he does well at the NHL level. All right, JP Hurlburt to the New York Rangers, another forward for them. I got Marcus Nordmark, a guy I'm decently high on, to the San Jose Sharks. I got a guy who's been a recent riser, a defenseman, in Maxim Sokolovsky, going to the Montreal Canadiens. Another defenseman in William Hawkinson, headed to the St. Louis Blues. And then Igor Shilov, another center who I think deserves recognition at around the back half of round 1. Jackson Cover, a winger who I'm decently high on as well, going to Carolina. playing a role for them where I think he can be a solid bottom sixer in the near future. And then Victor Plante rounding out the final 32 pick round one mock draft that I have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys would do differently. At the end of the day, it's just a mock draft. It's just my predictions. Has nothing to do with what I think of the actual players. And again, I'm super familiar, like not super familiar, but I'm a little more familiar with the guys who are towards the front of this round rather than some guys back here. But I do know, about 50 or so prospects in this draft class. Excited to see where everyone goes tonight, though, regardless. Who do you want your team to take? And let me know down in the comment section below. Yeah, let's see what happens tonight.